Alright guys, welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. This is Ali Plays. And today we're going to be doing a tier list. So we're going to be doing the tier list for the Lizardmen faction. So we're going to be putting all the Lizardmen in a tier of their own or with other Lizardmen. The only champions that are very bad are the ones that are under the F tier. SS, S, A, and B are very good champions. Well, they are different, of course. So just a disclaimer, this is my opinion and not fact. So you guys might have differing views on which champion should be where. You guys can let me know down in the comment section. That's fine. And yeah, let's just get started. So we're gonna start with the uncommon. We have Troglodyte. So he just has an ability that attacks 2 times. And he has a 25% chance of placing a decreased attack debuff for 1 turn. So we're just gonna put this guy where he belongs. So we're gonna put him in the F tier. So next up we have Saurus. So Saurus is a very good champion. He does have his uses, but he's very niche. He's usable in the campaign. He's a good farmer. If you can get him to level 60, you gotta get his masteries. You gotta get his gear right to utilize that. And he's usable in Spider, but not end game. So he is a good champion. It is also usable in faction wars. So I'll put him as a niche. So I'll make him a B tier champion. So next up we have Stalker. His A1, he attacks one enemy and he heals this champion by 10% of the damage dealt. And his A2, he attacks one enemy twice and has a 15% chance of placing a decreased attack debuff, and it's a 25% one. So automatically this guy is an F tier champion. And let's look at Hard Scale. Hard Scale has a decreased speed on his A1. And he has a chance of placing a stun debuff the target has decreased speed on. So yeah, you can see that he's not a very good champion. So he is gonna be in F tier. So next up we have Skinner. What I like about this guy is he has a triple hit on his basic attack, and he can also remove 2 random buffs from a target. So he does actually have his uses, but unfortunately you're gonna be needing to use Giant Slayer on him. So you need to work on his masteries in order for him to be viable. So that's the reason why he is gonna be a B tier champion. Next up we have Metal Shaper. So Metal Shaper, his A1, he has a 30% chance of stealing 1 random buff from the target. What I like about this is he's viable in Magic and Spirit Keep because of that. And if you max it out, it's going to be a 45% chance of stealing 1 random buff. And that's on his basic attack. So that's what I really like about him. He's a support champion. He plays a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. And the value of the shield is proportional to his champion level. So the higher the level he is, the higher the shield. And it can be a 2-turn cooldown when maxed out. So that is very good. And his ability called Rescue removes all debuffs from an ally with the lowest HP. And then he heals the ally by 25% of his max HP. And he plays the increased defense buff on the target for 3 turns. That can be a 4-turn cooldown. And his aura skill increased ally defense and faction crisp by 15%. So for me, I believe this guy, Metal Shaper, is an A tier champion. So let's move on to Slasher. Slasher's basic attack is really basic. He just attacks one enemy. His A2 attacks one enemy twice, and he has a 25% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. You can increase crit rate, not that good. Increase ally attack and faction crisp by 17%. So he is a F tier champion. Next up we have Flinger. So Flinger has a decreased defense debuff on his basic attack. He has an AoE, and he can attack one enemy. The skill always inflicts a critical hit. And his aura skill increased ally resist and faction crisp by 30. So I rated Flinger as a B tier unit because he is viable. You can use him in faction crisps. Next up we have Hurler. So Hurler's attack, basic attack, he attacks one enemy 2 times, and each hit has a 25% chance to ignore defense by 50%. His Fireball ability attacks one enemy and removes 1 random buff from the target and fails his turn meter by 30%. So I really like this ability. He's on a 3-turn cooldown. It's very good for, you can use it in Arena, you can use it in Magic Keep, you can use it in Spirit Keep. It's a very good ability. And then his pin down ability, he attacks one enemy and puts the target skills on cooldown, so that is an Arena ability. And his aura skill increases ally attack and defense by 21%. So for me, I feel like this is a niche champion. He's not terrible, but he does have his uses. Well, these guys have their uses, but he's going to be a little lower than them. So he would be on B tier. So let's move on to Skullsworn. So I really like Skullsworn. I've done an in-depth guide / review on him. He can do 3.8 million damage on the clan boss. You guys can go check that video out if you haven't. You can search on my channel. I've done an in-depth guide / review and the clan boss showcase with him. So they're 2 separate videos. Yeah, he's a very good champion. He can do a multitude of things. He's very good in Fire Knight's Castle. And yeah, let's go over his skills. So his basic attack attacks one enemy 2 times. And he has a 20% chance of placing an extra hit. And when maxed out, that 20% is going to be a 30% chance of placing an extra hit. So that's going to be 3 hits, potentially. His A2 ability places a 30% increased speed buff on himself for 2 turns. And also places a counterattack buff on himself for 2 turns. Which is very, very good. So he's self-reliant. He relies on himself. He can buff himself up, deal a lot of damage, and he's very quick. And that can be a 4-turn cooldown when maxed out. And his passive ability is very good, very, very good. Farrell Hunter. He fills his champion's turn meter by 15% critical hits. And he fills himself champion's turn meter by 50% the champion kills an enemy. And his aura skill increases ally speed and faction crits by 13%. So I'm going to be placing Skullsworn on the A tier on the list. And he is a farmable champion. You can farm him in the campaign. I forgot which stage it is. So let's move over to Bog Walker. So Bog Walker, what I really like about this guy is he has a decreased attack on his basic attack, which automatically makes him one of the top tier champions with decreased attack on their basic because of this ability. He's not on a cooldown, so that's why he's very good. He has an AoE that places a 30% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns, which is very good. It can be a 3-turn cooldown when maxed out. Scout, he places a 30% reflect damage buff on all allies for 1 turn when attacked with a critical hit. And his aura skill increases ally HP and dungeons by 25%. So he is a very good champion. He has his uses for sure. So we're going to be placing Bog Walker in A tier. Slither Brew. So Slither Brew is one of those champions that you need for fusion fodder. So you're going to use him for the Rosin Scar fusion, and he was also needed for the Molly Tankard fusion. So if you guys have an extra copy of Slither Brew, I would keep him in the vault just in case he's used for another fusion. So his basic attack, he can place a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Not very good. His A2 is pretty good. He attacks one enemy and steals a random buff from them. And his A3 ability, it decreases the target's turn equal to the amount of buffs on the target. So if this was not based on how many buffs the target has, he would be ranked much higher. But it's too situational. Aura skill increase ally accuracy and dungeons by 40. That is actually pretty good. But I'm going to have to place Slither Brew on the F tier. So don't be afraid to use him in your fusions. He kind of looks like Jizo, right? And let's move on to Gators. So Gators is a support champion. He has a heal reduction on his basic, but it's only 50%, so it's a weak one. He can place a 25% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns, so that is the weak one as well. And he can remove all debuffs from all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. And he can increase magic ally crit rate in all battles by 22%. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to place Gator on F tier. He doesn't have any heals or anything, so he's not a very good support champion. And he has all the weak types of debuffs and buffs. Let's go over to Skink. So Skink is A1. He ignores block damage and shield buffs. So that's pretty good, I guess, but I don't think he deals that much damage. His A2, he has a 50% chance of placing decreased defense debuff and plays a heal reduction if the target has a decreased defense debuff. His A3 attacks one enemy. This hit is critical if the target has a heal reduction debuff. So everything is very situational. Increase that magic ally attack in all battles by 30%. So unfortunately, he is going to F tier. And let's talk about Muck Stalker. Muck Stalker's A1 has a 30% chance of placing a block buff debuff for 2 turns. He attacks one enemy and places a sleep debuff for 2 turns. The target has no active buffs. So this is very situational. Places a 15% continuous heal buff on the champion for 2 turns. The incoming damage exceeds 20% HP in 1 attack. Increase ally HP and faction crits by 22%. So that is actually pretty good faction crits or a skill, but unfortunately he is F tier. So now that we're done with the commons, uncommons, and rares, we're going to move on to the epic champions. So we're going to start off with Broadmaw. So Broadmaw is one of those champions that is a free-to-play champion. He's an epic support champion and he's void. You can get him, you can fuse champions to get him. So you can fuse terrible champions to fuse what everybody thought was a terrible champion. But he's actually surprisingly very good for faction crypts. And as well as arena. I've seen some teams dominate in arena with Broadmaw. Not in the gold tiers though. Not in the late gold tiers, like gold 3 and things like that. Because the aura skill increased ally defense in the arena by 33%. I think that would be much better if they made it a universal aura skill. His A1, he has a 25% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. If you max it out, it's going to be a 35% chance. And he can place a 30% increased crit rate buff and increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. His resurrect ability revives 2 random dead allies with 25% HP and places a block damage buff on the revived allies for 1 turn. So that is very powerful ability. When maxed out, it's going to be a 5-turn cooldown. Unfortunately, he is an epic champion, so you're going to need epic skill books to max him out. I think he is good when maxed out, but nobody wants to waste epic skill books on him. So if you want, you can actually fuse him multiple times and feed him into one of them. So when Muradma first came out, I would have him as a B tier champion, but right now I have him as A tier. Let me know down in the comment section if you guys agree with that. So let's go to Jizo. He has a double hit on his basic attack. He's one of those free-to-play champions that you get from logging in at the beginning of the game. He plays a shield buff for 3 turns and a counterattack buff for 2 turns on one ally and grants an extra turn. And the value of shields proportional to this champion's defense. Ryle attacks one enemy, has an 80% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 2 turns. And he can place a continuous heal buff on himself for 2 turns. And his aura skill increases ally attack and all battles by 18%. So this might be a little controversial, but I'm going to place him in B tier. So let me know if you guys think I should move Jizo up. Let's move on to Drake. So Drake could have been rated higher if Faction Crypts did not scale as hard as it did, because it gets too difficult too quickly. But in the beginning, on the Lizardmen faction, I used Drake and he was killing enemies and continuously moving because of his ability right here. Attacks one enemy, grants an extra turn if the target is killed. So in the beginning, he was very powerful in that, but once you get to the later stages, this ability is very useless. So that's what kind of killed Drake for me. His A2 ability attacks one enemy if the target has less than 30% HP, then its attack is always critical. Decimate, it attacks one enemy, places a decreased speed debuff and a 50% decreased accuracy debuff on all enemies except the target for 2 turns if the attack is critical. And his aura skill increase attack in the arena by 30%. So I feel like Drake actually needs a rework. I think he needs to be better. He is B tier for me right now. So if you guys are watching this, make sure you guys rework Drake. So let's talk about Basilisk. What I like about Basilisk, or Basilisk, I don't know how you pronounce it, is that he has an AoE on his basic attack and he places an increased attack buff on himself for 2 turns if the attack is critical. So he has multiple chances to get crits with this attack. And his A2 ability attacks one enemy, places a stun debuff for 1 turn. And his passive ability, he revives himself to 30% HP when killed, places a block damage buff for 1 turn. And unfortunately, that's a 6-turn cooldown. So if you want to use this guy as a campaign farmer, you can probably do it, honestly. So I would rate this guy as A tier. So let's move on to Jarrig. So Jarrig is the best epic champion on the Lizardmen. He has a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns on his basic attack, which is very, very good. So he's a SS tier decreased attack champion because it's on his basic. So I did do an end of the guide / review on Jarrig. You guys can check that out if you haven't. His A2 ability is what makes him really good, as well as his A1, obviously. Actually, his whole kit is just really good in general. He plays a 50% ally protection and a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns, and that's 4-turn cooldown maxed out. Passive ability places a 15% continuous heal buff on an ally for 1 turn whenever an ally loses 20% of their max HP in 1 hit, which is pretty often on the clan boss. And aura skill increase ally HP in all battles by 33%, and that's universal. So Jarrig is S tier. So let's talk about Jarang. So I used to be confused with their names. Jarrig and Jarang is pretty close. His basic attack ignores 30% of the target's defense on his basic attack. His A2 ability is a double hit that has a chance of stunning. His A3 ability attacks 3 times at random, and he has a 50% chance of placing a decreased attack debuff and a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. So that is pretty good, but it's too random. His aura skill increases ally speed and deadness by 23%. So actually, Jarang for me is an A tier champion. So we're left with 3 more champions. So we have Rosin. Rosin's got a triple hit on his basic attack that has a 20% chance of removing 1 random buff from the target. That is very good ability for arena, very good for clan boss. Basically usable anywhere in the game, so he's good with Giant Slayer and Fire Knight's Castle. His A2 ability attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff and 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. So I actually use Rosin in the Spider's Den with my Cold Hearts. So he usually uses his sheer ability and the Cold Hearts use their A3, and usually the fight is over. But I'm still working on my artifacts to get to Spiders 20. And he has an AoE that decreases the turn meter by 100%. That is a very powerful AoE. And increase ally resistance in the arena by 90. So he's actually viable in arena because of that. Well, his kit is just usable anywhere. So I actually done an in-depth guide / review on Rosin. You guys can check that out if you want. And for the rankings, Rosin is going to be an S tier champion. Sorry, Rosin should be one. Rosin should be over here. So Rosin should have his own tier. So this is S. This is A. This is B. C. And I'll just keep this as F. Yeah, so Rosin is over here. Next up we have Fushan. So when I first saw Fushan, I thought he was a very beast champion. Text on enemy has 25% chance of placing an extra hit. Honestly, you guys playing him should have just made this a double hit in the first place, or even a triple. He has an AoE that attacks twice, and each has a 20% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. So it's a 35% chance will max out on a 3-turn cooldown. It is pretty good for Spider, I guess, for the stun as well as in arena. I consider him an arena champion. His shred ability, he attacks 4 times at random. Each hit has 50% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. And his aura skill increases ally speed in old battles by 24%. Fushan is missing something. He's a legendary champion. I believe that he doesn't need a rework. I mean, he looks exactly like Jarek, but they are in the same tier. And let's move on to Drakon Wharf. So Drakon Wharf did get a buff, and now he's like one of the top tier champions in the game. His A1 attack damage increases by 10% for each debuff on the target, and he will attack one random enemy with any surplus damage if the target is killed. Damage inflicted is equal to triple the surplus damage. He attacks 4 times at random. Each hit places a 5% poison debuff for 3 turns. So this guy can stack poisons. That's on a 3-turn cooldown when maxed out. Baleful Eye, he places a 25% weaken debuff and a 60% decreased defense debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. I don't know if you guys know how powerful this ability is, especially for Spiders 20, because he has both of these abilities on an AoE. Both of this weaken and decreased defense in one ability. Aura skill increase ally accuracy and faction crisp by 50. So with the rework, Drakon Wharf is a GOAT for Lizardmen. He's a SS tier. He's a Lizardman greatest of all time. So that's going to be it for this video. If you guys want to see me do other factions tier lists, let me know down in the comment section, and let me know which one you want me to do. There are a lot of factions, obviously. So let me know in the comment section what you want to see. And if you guys found this video helpful or entertaining in any way, make sure you guys drop a like. And if you guys are new to the channel and you like what you see, definitely hit that big red subscribe button. And while you're at it, make sure you guys turn on notifications so that YouTube knows you want to stay up to date on all my latest content. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.